Yangon is a former capital of Myanmar and the capital of Yangon Region. It also served as the capital in Exile of Azad Hind. Yangon is the country's largest city with a population of nearly 6 million and is the most important commercial center, although the military government officially relocated the capital to the newly built city of Naypyidaw in March 2006. Although Yangon's infrastructure is undeveloped compared to that of other major cities in Southeast Asia, it now has the largest number of colonial buildings in the region, while many high-rise residential and commercial buildings have been constructed or renovated throughout downtown and Greater Yangon in the past 2 decades. Most satellite towns that ring the city continue to be deeply impoverished. Etymology: Yangon is a combination of the two words yan and kun, which mean enemies, and run out of, respectively. It is also translated as end of strife. Rangoon most likely comes from the British imitation of the pronunciation of Yangon in the Arakanese language, which is history. Early history: Yangon was founded as Dagon in the early 11th century by the Mon, who dominated Lower Burma at the time. Dagon was a small fishing village centered about the Shwedagon Pagoda. In 1755, King Alongpa conquered Dagon, renamed it Yangon, and added settlements around Dagon. The British captured Yangon during the First Anglo-Burmese War, but returned it to Burmese administration after the war. The city was destroyed by a fire in 1841. Colonial Rangoon: the British seized Yangon and all of Lower Burma in the Second Anglo-Burmese War of 1852, and subsequently transformed Yangon into the commercial and political hub of British Burma. Yangon is also the place where the British sent Bahadur Shah II, the last Mughal emperor, to live after the Indian Rebellion of 1857. Based on the design by Army engineer Lt. Alexander Fraser, the British constructed a new city on a grid plan on Delta land, bounded to the east by the Pasandong Creek and to the south and west by the Yangon River. Yangon became the capital of all British Burma after the British had captured Upper Burma in the Third Anglo-Burmese War of 1885. By the 1890s, Yangon's increasing population and commerce gave birth to prosperous residential suburbs to the north of Royal Lake and Inya Lake. The British also established hospitals including Rangoon General Hospital and colleges including Rangoon University. Colonial Yangon, with its spacious parks and lakes and mix of modern buildings and traditional wooden architecture, was known as the Garden City of the East. By the early 20th century, Yangon had public services and infrastructure on par with London. Before World War II, about 55% of Yangon's population of 500,000 was Indian or South Asian, and only about a third was Burma. Karens, the Chinese, the Anglo-Burmese and others made up the rest. After World War I, Yangon became the epicenter of Burmese independence movement, with leftist Rangoon University students leading the way. 3 nationwide strikes against the British Empire in 1920, 1936 and 1938 all began in Yangon. Yangon was under Japanese occupation, and incurred heavy damage during World War II. The city was retaken by the Allies in May 1945. Yangon became the capital of Union of Burma on the 4th of January 1948 when the country regained independence from the British Empire. Contemporary Yangon. Soon after Burma's independence in 1948, many colonial names of streets and parks were changed to more nationalistic Burmese names. In 1989, the current military junta changed the city's English name to Yangon, along with many other changes in English transliteration of Burmese names. Since independence, Yangon has expanded outwards. Successive governments have built satellite towns such as Thakheta, North Okalapa and South Okalapa in the 1950s to Haing Thla, Naypyidaw and South Dagon in the 1980s. Today, Greater Yangon encompasses an area covering nearly 600 square kilometers. During Ne Win's isolationist rule, Yangon's infrastructure deteriorated through poor maintenance and did not keep up with its increasing population. In the 1990s, the current military government's more open market policies attracted domestic and foreign investment, bringing a modicum of modernity to the city's infrastructure. Some inner-city residents were forcibly relocated to new satellite towns. Many colonial-period buildings were demolished to make way for high-rise hotels, office buildings, and shopping malls, leading the city government to place about 200 notable colonial-period buildings under the Yangon City Heritage List in 1996. Major building programs have resulted in 6 new bridges and 5 new highways linking the city to its industrial backcountry. Still, much of Yangon remains without basic municipal services such as 24-hour electricity and regular garbage collection. Yangon has become much more indigenous Burmese in its ethnic makeup since independence. After independence, many South Asians and Anglo-Burmese left. Many more South Asians were forced to leave during the 1960s by Ne Win's xenophobic government. Nevertheless, sizable South Asian and Chinese communities still exist in Yangon. The Anglo-Burmese have effectively disappeared, having left the country or intermarried with other Burmese groups. Yangon was the center of major anti-government protests in 1974, 1988 and 2007. The 1988 People Power Uprising resulted in the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands of Burmese civilians, many in Yangon, where hundreds of thousands of people flooded into the streets of the then capital city. The Saffron Revolution saw mass shootings and the use of crematoria in Yangon by the Burmese government to erase evidence of the crimes against monks, unarmed protesters, journalists and students. The city's streets saw bloodshed each time as protesters were gunned down by the government. In May 2008, Cyclone Nargis hit Yangon. While the city had few human casualties, 3/4 of Yangon's industrial infrastructure was destroyed or damaged, with losses estimated at $800 million. In November 2005, the military government designated Naypyidaw, 320 kilometers north of Yangon, as the new administrative capital, and subsequently moved much of the government to the newly developed city. At any rate, Yangon remains the largest city, and the most important commercial center of Myanmar. Geography. Yangon is located in Lower Burma at the convergence of the Yangon and Bago rivers, about 30 kilometers away from the Gulf of Martaban at 16 degrees 48 north, 96 degrees 09 east. Its standard time zone is UTC GMT plus 6:30 hours. Climate. Yangon has a tropical monsoon climate under the Köppen climate classification system. The city features a lengthy rainy season from May through October, where a substantial amount of rainfall is received, and a dry season from November through April, where little rainfall is seen. It is primarily due to the heavy precipitation received during the rainy season that Yangon falls under the tropical monsoon climate category. During the course of the year, average temperatures show little variance, with average highs ranging from 29 to 36 degrees Celsius and average lows ranging from 18 to 25 degrees Celsius. Cityscape. Until the mid-1990s, Yangon remained largely constrained to its traditional peninsula setting between the Bagar, Yangon and Hyang rivers. People moved in, but little of the city moved out. Maps from 1944 show little development north of Inyo Lake, and areas that are now layered in cement and stacked with houses were then virtual backwaters. Since the late 1980s, however, the city began a rapid spread north to where Yangon International Airport now stands. But the result is a stretching tail on the city, with the downtown area well removed from its geographic center. The city's area has steadily increased from 72.52 square kilometers in 1901 to 86.2 square kilometers in 1940 to 208.51 square kilometers in 1974, to 346.13 square kilometers in 1985, and to 598.75 square kilometers in 2008. Architecture. Downtown Yangon is known for its leafy avenues and fin-de-siècle architecture. The former British colonial capital has the highest number of colonial period buildings in Southeast Asia. Downtown Yangon is still mainly made up of decaying colonial buildings. The former High Court, the former Secretariat buildings, the former Street Falls English High School and the Strand Hotel are excellent examples of the bygone era. Most downtown buildings from this era are four-story mixed-use buildings with 14-foot ceilings, allowing for the construction of mezzanines. Despite the less-than-perfect conditions, the buildings remain highly sought after and most expensive in the city's property market. In 1996, the Yangon City Development Committee created a Yangon City Heritage List of old buildings and structures in the city that cannot be modified or torn down without approval. In 2012, the city of Yangon imposed a 50-year moratorium on demolition of buildings older than 50 years. The Yangon Heritage Trust, an NGO started by Thant Myanmar, aims to create heritage areas in downtown, and attract investors to renovate buildings for commercial use. A latter-day hallmark of Yangon is the 8-story apartment building. Is called an apartment building, and one with elevators is called a condominium. Condos which have to invest in a local power generator to ensure 24-hour electricity for the elevators are beyond the reach of most Yangonites. Found throughout the city in various forms, 8-story apartment buildings provide relatively inexpensive housing for many Yangonites. The apartments are usually 8 stories high, mainly because city regulations, until February 2008, required that all buildings higher than 75 feet or 8 stories install elevators. The current code calls for elevators in buildings higher than 62 feet to 6 stories, likely ushering in the era of the 6-story apartment building. Although most apartment buildings were built only within the last 20 years, they look much older and run down due to shoddy construction and lack of proper maintenance. Unlike other major Asian cities, Yangon does not have any skyscrapers. Aside from a few high-rise hotels and office towers downtown, most high-rise buildings are condos scattered across prosperous neighborhoods north of downtown such as Daegan, Kamayat and Mangan. The tallest building in Yangon, BA Gardens, is a 25-story condo in the city's north. Older satellite towns such as Thakkata, North Okalapa and South Okalapa are lined mostly with 1 to 2-story detached houses with access to the city's electricity grid. Newer satellite towns such as North Daegan and South Daegan are still essentially slums in a grid layout. The satellite towns, old and new, receive little or no municipal services. Road layout. Downtown Yangon's road layout follows a grid pattern, based on 4 types of roads: broad 160-foot wide roads running west to east, broad 100-foot wide roads running south to north, 2 narrow 30-foot wide streets running south to north, mid-size 50-foot wide streets running south to north. The east-west grid of downtown Yangon was laid out by British military engineers Fraser and Montgomery after the Second Anglo-Burmese War. The city was later developed by the Public Works Department and Bengal Corps of Engineers. The pattern of south to north roads is as follows: 1 broad 100-foot wide broad road, 2 narrow streets, 1 mid-size street, 2 more narrow streets, and then another 100-foot wide broad road. This order is repeated from west to east. The narrow streets are numbered, the medium and broad roads are named. For example, the 100-foot Naypyidaw road is followed by 30-foot wide 17th and 18th streets, then the medium 50-foot St. Odan road, the 30-foot 19th and 20th streets, followed by another 100-foot wide Lather road, followed again by the 2 numbered small roads 21st and 22nd streets, and so on. The roads running parallel west to east were the Strand Road, Merchant Road, Mahabandula Road, Anarati Road, and Bogyo Kongsan Road. Parks and gardens. The largest and best maintained parks in Yangon are located around Shwedagon Pagoda. To the southeast of the Gilded Stupa is the most popular recreational area in the city, Kand-Orgi Lake. The 150-acre lake is surrounded by the 110-acre Kand-Orgi Nature Park, and the 69.25-acre Yangon Zoological Gardens, which consists of a zoo, an aquarium and an amusement park. West of the pagoda towards the former Lator complex is the 130-acre People's Square and Park. A few miles north of the pagoda lies the 37-acre Inyo Lake Park, a favorite hangout place of Yangon University students, and a well-known place of romance in Burmese popular culture. Lorga National Park and Allied War Memorial at the outskirts of the city are popular day trip destinations with the well-to-do and tourists. Administration. Yangon is administered by the Yangon City Development Committee. YCDC also coordinates urban planning. The city is divided into 4 districts. The districts combined have a total of 33 townships. The current mayor of Yangon is HLA Mayan. Each township is administered by a committee of township leaders, who make decisions regarding city beautification and infrastructure. Myanmar are not within such jurisdictions. Yangon is a member of Asian Network of Major Cities 21. Transport. Yangon is Burma's main domestic and international hub for air, rail, and ground transportation. Air Yangon International Airport, located 12 miles from downtown, is the country's main gateway for domestic and international air travel. The airport currently has 2 main international terminals, known as T1 and T2, and a domestic terminal. It has direct flights to regional cities in Asia, mainly Dhaka, Kolkata, Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Beijing, Seoul, Guangzhou, Taipei, Bangkok, Kuala Lumpur, Kunming and Singapore. Although domestic airlines offer service to about 20 domestic locations, most flights are to tourist destinations such as Bagan, Mandalay, Keho and Napali, and to the capital Naypyidaw. Railways. Yangon Central Railway Station is the main terminus of Myanmar Railway's 5,403-kilometer rail network, whose reach covers Upper Myanmar, Upcountry, Shan Hills and the town Bhutan and the coast. Yangon's circular railway runs a 45.9-kilometre 39-station commuter rail network that connects Yangon's satellite towns. The system is heavily utilized by the local populace, selling about 150,000 tickets daily. The popularity of the commuter line has jumped since the government reduced petrol subsidies in August 2007. Buses and cars. Yangon has a 4,456-kilometer road network of all types in March 2011. Many of the roads are in poor condition and not wide enough to accommodate an increasing number of cars. The vast majority of Yangon residents cannot afford a car and rely on an extensive network of buses to get around. Over 300 public and private bus lines operate about 6,300 crowded buses around the city, carrying over 4.4 million passengers a day. All buses and 80% of the taxis in Yangon run on compressed natural gas following the 2005 government decree to save money on imported petroleum. Highway buses to other cities depart from Dagon Ayar Highway Bus Terminal for Irrawaddy Delta Region and Ongmengala Highway Bus Terminal for other parts of the country. Motor transportation in Yangon is highly expensive for most of its citizens, as the government allows only a few thousand cars to be imported each year in a country with over 50 million people. Car prices in Yangon are among the highest in the world. In July 2008, the two most popular cars in Yangon, 1986-87 Nissan Sunny Super Saloon and 1988 Toyota Corolla Shea Limited, cost the equivalent of about $20,000 and $29,000 respectively. A sports utility vehicle, imported for the equivalent of around $50,000, goes for $250,000. Illegally imported unregistered cars are cheaper, typically about half the price of registered cars. Nonetheless, car usage in Yangon is on the rise, a sign of rising incomes for some, and already causes much traffic congestion in highway-less Yangon streets. In 2011, Yangon had about 300,000 registered motor vehicles in addition to an unknown number of unregistered ones. Since 1970, cars have been driven on the right side of the road in Burma as part of a military decree. However, as the government has not required left-hand drive cars to accompany the right-side road rules, many cars on the road are still right-hand drive, made for driving on the left side. Japanese used cars, which make up most of the country's imports, still arrive with RHD and are never converted to LHD. As a result, Burmese drivers have to rely on the passengers when passing other cars. Within Yangon city limits, it is illegal to drive trishaws, bicycles, and motorcycles. Since February 2010, pickup truck bus lines have been forbidden to run in 6 townships of downtown Yangon, namely Latha, Naypyidaw, Parbaden, Kyauktada, Botatarung and Pasndong townships. In May 2003, a ban on using car horns was implemented in 6 townships of downtown Yangon to reduce noise pollution. In April 2004, the car horn ban was expanded to cover the entire city. River. Yangon's 4 main passenger jetties, all located on a near downtown waterfront, mainly serve local ferries across the river to Dala and Thanlin, and regional ferries to the Irrawaddy Delta. The 22-mile Twant Canal was the quickest route from Yangon to the Irrawaddy Delta until the 1990s, when roads between Yangon and the Irrawaddy division became usable year-round. While passenger ferries to the Delta are still used, those to Upper Burma via the Irrawaddy River are now limited mostly to tourist river cruises.